when we look at identifying what the challenges are that the kiddos have, we need to talk about, is this a critical need? Is this student struggling significantly more than their general education peers? But we need to look at the classroom environment, and we need to look at the kids. We all have those periods where first period really got it. They are on it and they know it. Second period, they did okay, but you know, because you teach those 8 periods, by 8th period, you know how to teach it perfect, and they're gonna get it no matter what because you've taught it 7 times already. So when you look at where their need is, you need to look at the classroom environment and say, are all these 7th graders understanding this TEK in first period? Or is this one student struggling significantly more than their peers in first period? Because each period is different. When I was in my classroom, I had 2nd and 8th period that were awesome. 2nd period, always got it because they were still kind of tired, so they worked through and we didn't see a lot of behaviors. 8th period, they knew if we didn't get through everything by the time the bell rang, we were keeping them until we got through it, and they all wanted to leave, so they worked hard. 6th period was right after lunch. I had a lot of behavior problems. I had all my modified kids. So when I looked at how they were struggling, their struggle was different than my 2nd and 8th period. So that I really did have to look at that classroom environment, and I had to go in and change how I taught 6th period because I couldn't teach them the same as 2nd and 8th period. We all have those classrooms. I need to look at those readiness standards and process standards. I want to look at a readiness standard because that's when we're looking at the STAR test, where their progression is happening. I want to look at that process standard because if it's math or science, I want to say, can they tell me what density is, but maybe can't solve for density because they get stuck in those steps? Can they tell me what slope is, but maybe can't solve for a variable because they get stuck in those steps? That goes back to that process standard. So I really want to break down what it is they know and they don't know. And then finally, the last one is access to the general ed curriculum. That's the last thing you need to fill out on that plaque. As a general ed teacher, I didn't understand what that meant. Well, what it means is, based on that child's disability, if they are a reading comprehension kiddo, where else is it going to affect them accessing the general ed curriculum? So if they can't read or they have trouble with comprehension, where else is it going to affect them? Everywhere. They're going to have a hard time in math, in science, in social studies. Depending on what their elective is, they're going to have a hard time there because they need to read to be successful. So right down here, I'm going to list those content areas where they're going to have trouble. If it's math, they might have a hard time in science. They might have a hard time maybe in band, maybe in choir if they have to count those notes. I'm not really a musical person, so I'm not sure, but it could be somewhere else where it can affect them. You want to think of looking at this one kiddo, where else are they going to have a hard time accessing the general ed curriculum based on their eligibility?